Okay, so let's see if we can summarize the total of the Starship trip. So it was 905 miles. The traveling time was 19 hours, 8 minutes. I added 273 kilowatt hours. The charging time was 2 hours and 41 minutes. The cost of charging was $88.36. Now, I've also added a comparison. So my backup car is a Jetta TDI. That car gets about 40 miles per gallon. So the same distance would have been $81.45 in diesel at 360 a gallon. So it would have been cheaper to take the Jetta in this case. And that makes some sense because typically during the day, I'm paying around 34 cents per kilowatt. So that kind of kills me there. Now, on the other hand, well, Ray, why do you have an electric car? Yes, okay, it costs slightly more on trips to charge up, but when I'm driving around town, more or less in the home location where I'm charging at home, when I charge at home, I charge 11 cents a kilowatt hour. So that total would have been 30 bucks roughly. So there you go. I don't think I had any problems with controlling the car or driving the car in any way. That all was fine. There were a couple of hangups. So when I go to things where people are we're sharing our experiences with people who don't have an EV yet, trying to demystify it, so to speak. So one of the questions I got the last time was, well, how many times have you run into problems with superchargers, and or when have you gone someplace and it was broken or things like that? Okay, so let's be fair. There were a couple of situations on this trip. So my first situation was at Three Rivers. At Three Rivers, they're running a version 2. They had eight posts, eight charging stations, so to speak. While I was there, 7 out of 8 were in use. So people like pulling into me. I was at the very end. I was in 4B, so they'd pull into 4A. So it's numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, and then A and B. So 1A, 1B, so on. So when I first pulled in, I'm like, okay, cool. I pulled in, plugged in, I'm charging. Okay, that's all I want to know. But then as I'm watching, so why do you take a few more minutes to watch? You want to make sure it ramps up. So a version 2, this is a version 2 supercharger. Version 2 can run at 150 kilowatts when you're down low and empty. So it initially ramped up. It ramped up to 2 kilowatts, and that's as far as it went. Now, when the car next to me pulled out, it jumped up to 20 kilowatts. And it's telling me the time remaining is like 8 hours. That was going to be impossible. Okay, so what do you do in this case? What you do is you pull up your navigation map and start checking to see if there's another supercharger nearby. So in my case, the direction I'm going in is Corpus Christi. Corpus Christi was still a little too far out. The other stop would have been Kingsville, which is south of Corpus Christi, but it was too far out. And so the third option I came across was Alice, Texas. So and that's a version 3. So instead of continuing down I-37, I chose to go down US 281, or I guess they call it Interstate 69C Center. I don't, whatever. It's US 281 to me. Anyway, so I chose to go to Alice. And the good news is, since US 281 is not the route you would normally take to go to South Padre Island. There wasn't many people there. In fact, I think there was only 3 people there when I was there, including 3 including me. I don't remember exactly, but it was great. So version 2, I pulled in, started ramping up to 250 almost immediately. So what a difference. So that's why you pay attention to how much charge you're getting. If you jump out of your car right away and go have lunch, and when you come back you realize you haven't done anything, that's going to be very frustrating. Now, what I would ask Tesla is do your measurements. Now, could I possibly have made a different arrangement? I'm not sure. If I had charged in shirts, could I have made it to Corpus? I don't know. Well, actually, speaking of that, going the other way from Corpus to Shirts, yes, I made it from Corpus to Shirts. I had to drive a bit slower, so I was driving like 68 in the 75 zone, and that gave me enough energy to make it all the way out to Shirts. Now, if I had bumped my charge rate up to 90% instead of 80%, maybe I would have had more margin and I would have been happier. I didn't think about that till later, but whatever, it's fine. I made it work. So anyway, there's 3 rivers. My second situation was when I got to Edinburgh. So I went and had lunch at Edinburgh. When I came back out, I was checking, and it said you could make halogen, and you'd be down to just under 1% when you got to halogen. So I started going that way, but then I missed a turn, so it said, nope, you can't make that. You'll run out of energy. I don't know why it was so different, but there it was. So the other option was go to McAllen. Now, when I was looking, the reason I went for halogen was because McAllen was supposedly busy. All the posts were busy. The good news is when I got to McAllen, 3 or 4 people had already left. So they must have been having some event at the Fine Arts Center or whatever it was. So I was able to get in, get plugged in and charged. So that worked out okay. It was just, again, using your navigation to figure out what options you have. And for most of you watching this, you probably wouldn't have chosen to go to Origin anyway. You probably would have chosen to go to McAllen and just wait in line, which would have been the more conservative way. I was rolling the dice on very low odds, or high risk, however you want to call it. Okay, so anyway, that's that one. South Padre was always indicated it was busy. Now, I had enough to go, so the last stop before going to South Padre was Harlingen. I made it to South Padre Island with using 30%, so I still had 50% battery. So I knew I could make it back to Harlingen as long as I didn't go cruising around a whole lot or anything like that. Anyway, South Padre Island supposedly has 2 superchargers. I found them. They're actually in the parking lot of a resort. There was a guard post, although it wasn't manned. So maybe it's intended to keep people out when during busy times, but it's off season, right? I mean, it's April. Anyway, they were there, but they always seemed busy. To add to that, Joe Tegmeyer mentioned that there was some Tesla wall chargers down at the park. So if you went down to the park in a less busy time, there was 3 or 4 wall chargers down there that you could plug in, and I mean, I can charge up in like 3 hours usually. I'm not sure exactly how long it takes when it's empty, but I mean, the charge you get out of a 3-hour charge would be more than enough to make it almost any place you need to go for an hour and a half or so. Anyway, so that was that one. So I mentioned 3 Rivers. I mentioned Harlingen. So the other one I had a problem with was going from Corpus to Shirts. I already had a bad experience with 3 Rivers. I didn't want to go to 3 Rivers again. So I applied the conservative driving mode. So the speed limit on I-37 is 75 miles an hour most of the time. Now, and so based upon, so your navigation looks at what the speed limit is and estimates based on that. So based upon its estimation, I would have to stop in 3 Rivers. Now, I don't know if how 3 Rivers was doing. I didn't care to repeat that experience, so I went slower. And I've already talked about this, but anyway. So to bypass 3 Rivers, I went slower, about 7 miles under the speed limit, which is still over 65 miles an hour, so it's still moving along pretty good. It's just not as fast as other people, as you normally would drive in other situations. Anyway, I made the Shirts. I had 5-8%, something like that left, so no problem. It's just some drama. So the only real problem was the 3 Rivers one. That was a nightmare. And if I had a Tesla, I'd be writing letters to Tesla and Elon Musk and all those guys. But anyway, whatever. With the experience of driving an EV for how long's it been? 3/4 of a year, which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it was enough to make a difference. And so I would like to think that if you're aware of what's going on, you could approach it in the same way. Anyway, there you go. I'm glad I made the trip. I'm glad to spend a little bit of time at the beach. Glad to have a vacation. Glad to take a trip in my Tesla. I love taking trips in my Tesla. That is great. Disappointed that the rocket didn't launch, but those things happen. And although there's no I mean, they're supposed to launch on 4/20, which is tomorrow, but neither the ship or the booster's coming back. They're going to splash them down in the water and let them sink. I mean, they're getting test data. That's the value of sending it up. But they already have what's it, heavy lifter or whatever it is, and they have another Starship that's ready to run out to the pad for the next test flight. They just haven't scheduled it yet. So maybe there'll be another. I mean, maybe there will be a chance to go back again, and that's what I'm looking forward to. I just have to debate what it is I want to do when I do that. Anyway, I hope sharing this experience with you all has been helpful to some of you. I mean, I heard from some people that drove down, like from Chicago, from Canada. I mean, people drove down from all over the place to be there at South Padre Island to witness this event. And you can watch it on YouTube, or on the SpaceX website, I believe. I know it's on YouTube. But anyway, so you don't even have to be there. Now, from my viewpoint, I'll add more, I'm sorry. So, from my viewpoint, when I lived in Florida, yes, my mother took us down to the beach to watch one of the rockets go up. And it was awesome to watch it going up. I mean, it's far away, so the scale's kind of small, but you could still hear the thunder of those engines. So that part was pretty cool. So that's part of the reason why I wanted to go down there, to witness it firsthand, to feel the noise. But anyway, whatever. So I'm hoping there'll be more chances. I'm sure there will. I have faith in SpaceX doing the launch. So there you go. To any of you thinking about it, you're on the fence, you're not sure, yeah, go. If you're kind of restricted and you can't get out, watch it on YouTube. And once they record it, you can go back on YouTube later and see it. So that all works out. I mean, this is historic stuff. I mean, I can tell you from the Apollo missions, when they got towards the end of the Apollo missions, it was so routine, we got bored with it. But it was actually pretty amazing stuff they were doing. And they should have kept going. But when there's other things going on, you lose track of it. Anyway, hopefully, given what the mission is, as stated, I have confidence that they'll keep going for a while. Hopefully they'll be going for a long time. Now, do I really expect to go to the moon or go to Mars? No, I don't. I'm kind of old. But I would like to think my grandkids could. I mean, that would be cool. So let's hope for that. Anyway, talk to y'all later.